Are we ready?
Yeah, ready.
You good? Ladies and gentlemen of the press, called this press conference in order to clarify where we are today. Yesterday, I did give an interview with the media and said that today, the 35th anniversary of Saba Saba, I was going to go to Kamukunji to join other Kenyans in commemorating this very important day. Unfortunately, as you all know, circumstances, today there are roadblocks all over town, which has made it difficult for people to move to Kamukunji. In the circumstances, I've decided therefore to talk to the media here at Serena. Some of you may not know fully the history of Saba Saba. As you know that Kenya attained independence in 1963, and at that time it was a multi-party system. There are three political parties: KANU, KADU, and then APP. But after a very short period of time, those two other opposition political parties, because KANU had won the elections and formed the government, and the two other parties were in the opposition, they were folded up and joined KANU. And KANU remained the only political party. However, in 1966, an opposition party was formed called the Kenya People's Union. This party survived for 3 years and it was banned by the government in 1969. And the leadership of the party were arrested and taken to political detention. From that time onwards, Kenya remained a de facto single-party dictatorship from 1969 to 1982. 1982, when some of us wanted to form a political party, the regime then went to parliament and introduced a law to make the country a single party state de jure by introducing a constitutional amendment which is known as Section 2A that made it illegal to form any other political party. So from 1982, it remained literally a single-party dictatorship. That is the reason why in that same year there was a coup attempt which did not succeed. But before that, a number of Kenyans were arrested and taken to political detention. Most of them were lecturers at the University of Nairobi. Mukarunganga, people like Professor Katama Mukangi, Professor Willy Mutunga, Dr. Professor Yugi Akongo, quite a number of university lecturers were arrested and detained, and the others, Koigo Omwere, George Anyona, were taken to political detention. So this situation persisted. Some of us were arrested in that year, 1982, after the coup attempt, and taken to political detention. And We stayed there for 6 years. Then in 1988, Kanu brought an amendment to his laws saying that they were bringing what they called direct democracy, where there was a nomination process where people were lining up behind the candidates, and then the returning officer would count the voters who had lined up behind the candidates, and whoever got the highest number of votes, if you got more than 50% in total, you are automatically declared a member of parliament without having to go to the ballot. That process was abused, and many popular candidates were rigged at that stage, and therefore there was no real proper election in 1988. This now added momentum and anger to the movement for change. Among those people who had been rigged out were Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia. So, come 1990, by that time I had been to detention 2 times. The 2 politicians, Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia, on the 2nd of May 1990, addressed a press conference, which they said that Kenya, the time had come for Kenya to become a multi-party. That Kenyans wanted a multi-party system of government. They were condemned seriously as being ethnic chauvinists, anarchists, people who want to bring chaos in this country. We told that this country was not yet cohesive enough to become multi-party. It would take another 100 years before Kenya became a multi-party system. These were daydreamers. So the kind of machinery at that time set off now to demonize the 2 members of parliament, the 2 former members of parliament. And in the process, of course, a number of very inflammatory statements were made, even by some today politicians who are talking about democracy here. You go into the archives, you see the names and what they said at that time. So in the process, Kenneth Matiba came to look for me to arrange for a meeting between him and Ramogi Odinga, who is my father. I arranged the meeting, and then we met again. They met again with Mr. Rubia, Mr. Neko, and after lengthy deliberations, the decision was taken that they would be supported. At that same time, they sent the goons to Matiba's home the following day to attack his family. Matiba's wife was very badly wounded, Edith, and she was admitted to Nairobi Hospital, where we went to see her. After that, we, myself and Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia made a statement in which we said we would go to Kamukunji to ask Kenyans if they were ready for multi-party. And we do it on the day of the 7th of July that year, 1990. 7th of July, 1990. So after making that statement, we then now went on to mobilize for the meeting at Kamukunji. But then, of course, the police officers came to block us for meeting each other. They were stationed in my office at Ajip House, Matiba's office, up there on Koinange Street, and Rubia's office, and Paul Mwite's, and Gibson Kamal Korea's. On the 2nd of July 1990, Matiba and Rubia were arrested and taken to detention. On the 4th of July, I was arrested and taken to detention. That same night, they arrested Gitobu Manyara, they arrested John Hamenwa, they arrested now Justice Mohammed Ibrahim. Paul Mwite went into hiding. Kamal Korea ran into American embassy and sought refuge. Keyoto Murungi was in Ethiopia and went to America. But that's how it was. But the International Commission of Jurists came up and made a very powerful lobby for release Hamenwa and Manyara, and they were released. As we remained in detention. And as you know, Rubia is the one who was first affected. He got a very serious infection. He was taken to hospital. Eventually, he nearly lost his vocal cords and was released. Matiba suffered a stroke in detention and was removed and eventually brought to Nairobi Hospital, after which she was then taken to London for treatment. That completely undermined his health permanently. And these two people eventually died because of not old age at that time, but because of the injuries they sustained while in detention. Many people, but in spite of our being detained, the Kenyan people braved it and came out in numbers to go to Kamukunji on the 7th of July, 1990. Many people were killed attempting to reach Kamukunji grounds at that time. So then, after we came out of detention, then Ford was formed. We formed Ford. After forming Ford, again we get pressed and said we were going back to Kamukunji. Eventually, when I was taken again, I was moved away from here and taken into exile. But our people braved it and managed to march all the way into Kamukunji. And you'll see the photograph in front page of Nation there today. You can see Martin Chikuku, James Orengo, Nyang Nyongo, Masinde Muliro on the back of that truck guiding me up to Kamukunji. That was not on Saba Saba, that was on the 16th of November 1991. But it's still the Kamukunji. That's why Kamukunji is very historical, the second liberation of this country. And that's why we celebrate Saba Saba. The fateful day on which Kenya's struggle for multi-party democracy took the most decisive turn is iconic and historical. It's a day rivaled only by the present day Masuja Day, previously Kenyatta Day, that celebrates the arrest and detention of the freedom fighters jointly called the Kapenguria Six. It is regrettable that the recognition and remembrance of Saba Saba has not been consistent in its short period history of 35 years. One moment it is important. The next moment it is not. On this 35th anniversary of Saba Saba, we decided to remember and to set the record straight on its significance, what it was and is, and what we ought to do with the foundation it laid for the country. Before that day, some patriotic Kenyans had demanded the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution. A number of people, including Kenneth Matiba, Raila Odinga, Mohamed Ibrahim, Toby Manyara, John Haminwa, and Charles Rubia, among others, were arrested and detained. It is quite unfortunate that some of the people we were fighting then and who sanctioned those arrests are trying to hide behind Saba Saba to advance their political fortunes. Some of them are alive today and now are masquerading as liberators. On the fateful day, July 7th, 1990, thousands of Kenyans tried to gather at the historic Kamukunji grounds to take stock of the past, the state of the nation, and chart a path of freedom forward. We decided that Saba Saba would be a march for political freedom and liberty, freedom of association, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and a new democratic constitution founded on multipartyism. Kenyans wanted a fulfillment of the Kenyan dream, which was eradication of poverty, ignorance, disease, and good governance. That clarity of mission is what made Saba Saba different from all other confrontations with the Moi-Kanu one-party state. Saba Saba, therefore, was and still is about the sacred and historic grounds of Kamukunji. It was not and is not just another routine street protest in Nairobi or any other town. At Kamukunji is where they held the last cow Kenya-Africa Union meeting in 1952. It is where Kanu's first rally was also held. It was also where the first Ford meeting was held after registration. Saba Saba had a singular purpose: to the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution and allow multi-party democracy in Kenya. Saba Saba had clear and known national conveners: Kenneth Matiba, Charles Rubia, and yours truly, Raila Odinga. It was what gave birth to a bigger and powerful forum for the restoration of democracy, Ford. Ford had a known nationally inclusive leadership: Ramogi Odinga, Philip Gachoka, Ahmed Bamariz, Salim Damwe, Asinde Muliro, George Ndenge, Kenneth Matida, Charles Rubia, among others. Saba Saba was inclusive, democratic, and intergenerational. The old, the young, people in and out of the government, professionals, academics, trade unionists, civil society, women groups, and religious groups. All of them found their voice in what it stood for: a people's struggle for good governance, freedom, and equal opportunity for all. It was not one group against the entire nation. It was not community against that community, or of this age against that age. The movement stood for a peaceful and constitutional change of guard. That is the reason it focused singularly on amendment and later on the overhaul of the Constitution. These features are what made Saba Saba succeed. A year after the march, on December 2nd, 1991, President Moi capitulated. Section 2A of the Constitution was removed. Multipartyism was reinstated. we achieved our core aim, which was to return Kenya to multipartyism. Today, we have more parties than one could imagine then. That single amendment paved the way for the complete overhaul of the Constitution and the birth in 2010 of a new Constitution that came with provisions for fundamental freedoms and liberties that our citizens enjoy today. It is clear that many of the ideals espoused by the dreamers behind Saba Saba have become part of the national aspiration. We are a better nation because Saba Saba happened. We have a duty and a responsibility to honor the men and women who dared to dream and to turn out at a time of great peril to themselves and their families. 35 years later, the country is grappling with a new wave of unrest and political activism. The question we have to ask ourselves is, where do we go from here? Do we embrace chaos or a coming together of minds and country? As a living architect of the events leading to the Saba Saba, I choose a coming together of minds and country in the interest of the country. I long fought for its progress, stability, and prosperity. The most important struggle taking shape in our country today is the struggle for good governance, economic opportunity, and equality. The biggest challenge facing Kenya today and into the foreseeable future is how to expand economic opportunity and lift particularly young Kenyans out of poverty, exclusion, and unemployment. Kenyans are yearning for programs and leaders that prioritize economic inclusivity, social justice, and political freedom. There is no doubt that the country is yearning for legislation that makes our institutions more responsive, programs that ensure adequate funding for services that touch wananchi, changes that make our judiciary free, efficient and progressive, measures that make the executive more accountable and efficient. We must end impunity and corruption within our three arms of government. Our leaders must become modest, ethical, humble, and accountable. What is to be done? What is to be done? I propose an inclusive, intergenerational, national conclave to hear our people across all divides and come up with an irreducible reforms and changes necessary to take the country forward. I propose that the country urgently returns to the agenda of comprehensive police reforms, focusing on enhancing accountability, transparency, and improving the police-to-people relationship. Your rogue police force that shoots people with impunity. And this is a force that we inherited from the colonialists. It has not been reformed to become a people's defender, a people's servant. I propose that the conclave I envisage comes up with better and sustainable ways for addressing transparency, accountability, and impunity, especially with regard to corruption, and ensuring that leaders are held accountable for their actions. I propose that the forum comes up with a comprehensive and sustainable strategy for addressing youth unemployment and expansion of opportunities for youth in the formal and informal sectors. Such a national conclave must have a clear terms of reference and be populated and helmed by the most serious and sober minds in our nation. The proceeds of the national dialogue be subjected to a referendum. I rest my case. Thank you. Long live Kenya.
Do you have any questions or just end of that? Maybe one or two. Say your name and the media.
Thank you. My name is Duncan Haimba. I work with Detentions. In your speech, you have touched on issues of urgently looking at police reforms because they have gone back to the rogue days. What do you say of the Interior CS issued a shoot-to-kill order about 2 weeks ago, a day after the June 25th protests? And then secondly, you have said that where do we go from here? You have a close arrangement, working formula with the current president. What have you advised him? Because the country appears to be teetering towards, it's on the brink of precipice, so to speak. So what have you said? What have you advised the president? Because it appears the country is being turned into a police state, or what you can say it is teetering towards a failed state.
We talked for a long time about police reforms. Not just this time, not only with regard to this regime. In the regime before it, even one before that other regime. I would say that, we inherited a colonial police force. And as you know, the colonial system, colonialism was meant to rule the natives. It was not a people-friendly government. So what should have happened was to democratize this police force, reform it so that it becomes a service, not a force. It is not enough to just change the words. That is from a force to a service. You must take measures to ensure that it's really a service, not a force. And this has not happened in our country. I've given examples of where it has happened. For example, in Tanzania. And you see a police force which is people friendly and also not trigger happy. About the minister you're talking about, I said it was totally out of order. And he apologized to me. And he apologized to me and to the people. And he said the day before yesterday that police should handle people with care. So, yeah.
That's fine. Last one.
No,
just to say.
let's end there. Let's end there.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just wanted to know and find out. My name is Santolale from Citizen TV. Your proposals, as you put them, what are there also the thoughts being shared by the president towards this, and what happens if this particular proposal is not taken into account?
I've addressed the nation, and the president is part of the nation. And ask him, it applies to him as much as it applies to the other people. So I'm not partisan in any way. This is a proposal that is coming to me and from my party also, the ODM. This is our stand as a party. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Erokamano nyako Ramogi bang' bedo kod Chieng' Emmanuel mabende nosebedo gi wendwa ka Dr. Mark Matunga kachiel kod Ishmael Koyo. Nyako Ramogi thuolo en mar mondo wadhi mbele gi nono weche ma medo wuok e odiechieng' mar Saba Saba. Ma en odiechieng' mar 10 mar kedo ne ratiro kachiel kod kelo lokruok e piny Kenya manotimore higa mar 1990 osebedo wach ma iwuoye kendo en odiechieng' ma ikone nyiso ni owinjo bed ni medo keto kenge mag neno ni ratiro bedo ne oganda jo Kenya kendo telo yudo makare. Ogai mar ODM Raila Odinga oloso mana nyiri machuok ka entiere magawa ma Nairobi ka kendo ogolo duonde ewi gigo ma en owuon kaka jatelo ma osebedo e piny Kenya kod kaka achiel kuom jotelo mane omaki e kinde mag Saba Saba. Dwaro mare gima deber ne koneno katimore kowuok kuom jopiny kaachiel kod sirikal. Wach maduong' en ni en owuon dogomb neno piny ma jopiny yie bede piny gi sirikal kendo ji lalore. Joma pachgi ni kanyakla muting'o jotelo kaachiel kod jopiny giwegi to ji lalore to winjore ni ma e yo mowinjo bed ni idhi godo mbele. To ok en dwaro mare mondo ne ka mwandu ratiro mane gikedo negi kethore e lwet jomoko. Bendo koni nitiere jomoko mane odhiro mondo mak oganda e kinde Saba Saba ma otelo. To ni jogo ema koro wuok oko kawacho ni gine joma dwa kelo lokruok e piny. Mano gima ogai mar ODM Raila Odinga owacho ni owuoro. Kopogore kod mano, Raila Odinga owuon owacho ni gimomiyo kochopo Kamukunji en kaka chal mar piny kawuono. Ne nitiere road blocks mang'eny omiyo ok no nyal dhi nyaka Kamukunji. Ong'ado mondo Twak oganda kokale ute mag fwambo kowuok kamotwake magawa ma Serena Nairobi. Machiegni wacha kod Twak marwa dhi kod mbele nyakora Ramogi ka wang'iyo koro Twak mar ogai mar ODM Raila Odinga wadwa none ka kod Dr. Mark Matunga kaachiel kod Ishmael Koyo ma bende nitiere studio marwa Kisumu mondo wamed dhi nyime gi goyo mbaka ni wafuoni to bang' wach machal kamaendi manyiso ni piny Kenya chung' mare nyalo bedo yo machalo nade. Penjo ma ochanda bang' Raila wacho wachne mokwongo ni kaluwore kod chal mane nitie ne ok onyal wuok modhi Kamukunji. Penjo mara mapenjo gi samoro Raila ma ji oseng'eyo chien. Lidho ne Dr. Mark Matunga kani en luoro koso rieko. Kech gik moko ariyogo joma thoth ne paro ni ka Raila luongo jofwambo to nong'isogi ni bang' ka wawuok achiel kachiel nyaka Kamukunji. Nikech mane gima nyolando nyoro. To Raila ok en ga ng'ama loko pache oyoma. To wacho ni kaluwore kod gik mane nitie, ageng'a manoketie, oinga manoketie apaya, ong'ado ni ok odhi Kamukunji. Luoro koso rieko. Dr. Mark Matunga.
Joy Bati, happy Saba Saba Day.
Happy Saba Saba to you too.
Joluo nowacho ngero moro ni gima jaduong' neno kobedo. Ng'ama tin ok dine kata kochung' ewi faras.